to miss a single word that you might say. The Historic Preservation Commission is a 9-member board appointed by the City Council and serves on a voluntary basis without compensation. The purposes of the commission are to promote the educational, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the city through the preservation and protection of buildings, sites, structures, areas, and districts of historic significance and interest through the preservation and enhancement of local historic, architectural, archaeological, and aesthetic heritage found in the city through the maintenance of the distinctive characters of the city's historic districts and through the promotion and enhancement of the city's historic aesthetic attraction to citizens, tourists, and visitors. At this point, I'd like to ask the other members of the commission to introduce themselves, and tonight we'll start from my left and the audience right.
Ellen Martin.
Vincent Hall.
Keelan Adams.
Carol King.
Howard Robinson.
Thank you very much. And as we proceed here tonight,
Dr. Bailey.
I'm sorry.
Brennan Parker.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry, I snuck in.
Yeah. Okay. You have in your package the minutes of our June meeting, and the chair will now entertain a motion for the adoption of those minutes.
I move we accept the minutes of the HPC meeting from June 11th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moving properly second. Any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by a show of hands. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. At this point, as we proceed with our agenda, we have a video message from Faith Julian, daughter of Percy Julian, and Vicki Scaman, president of Chicago's Oak Park Village.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bailey. Hello, Montgomery. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you on Saturday, April 12th for the unveiling of the marker commemorating my father's boyhood home. I wish so much that I could be there with you on this momentous occasion, but I'll be there in spirit. I want to thank Dr. Bailey and the Mayor, Stephen Reed, for this honor. I also want to acknowledge and give thanks to Dr. Jeffrey Scaman of Richmond, Virginia, a chemical historian who was the person that first brought attention to Montgomery that Percy Julian deserved to be honored in this manner. The unveiling of the marker is occurring the day after my father's birthday, and Dr. Bailey told me that he was getting a cake to celebrate both occasions. April 19th represents the 50th anniversary of my father's death. I am reminded that in 1975, a couple of months after he had passed away, my mother, much to her surprise, received a proclamation from the then governor, George Wallace, who had a track record of racism, declaring that Percy Julian as a, quote, favorite son of Alabama, and April 11th as Percy Julian Day throughout the state. Dr. Bailey told me that there is now a high school in Montgomery that bears my father's name. To my knowledge, this is the only school throughout the South that carries his name. There was once a school in Monroe, Louisiana that had his name, but it no longer exists. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Brenda Coleman, a member of the Montgomery Board of Education, who was responsible for changing the name of the high school from Robert E. Lee to Percy L. Julian. Thank you, Dr. Coleman. I feel like my father would literally rise up from the grave to think that the capital of the Confederacy that once carried the name of Robert E. Lee now bears his name. Also, I want to mention that Dr. Coleman is a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, which is my sorority, as well as was my mother's. In fact, my mom served as their national president in 1929, their fourth national president. Again, thank you for this honor to designate my father's boyhood home with a historical marker. I'm hoping that it will serve to pique the interest and the curiosity of those in Montgomery who don't know anything about Percy Julian, as well as keep his name alive in the memory of other Montgomery residents and throughout the state of Alabama. Thank you.
Hello, I am Oak Park Village President Vicki Scaman. I was honored to receive an invitation to be with you today as you honor the birthday of Dr. Percy Julian in Montgomery, Alabama on April 11th, 1899. I am sorry I could not be there with you today. The village of Oak Park in Illinois is honored to be the location of Dr. Percy Julian's last home, where his daughter Faith continues to reside. We share in your passion and the need to preserve the legacy, accomplishments, and challenges of Dr. Percy Julian's journey in all of its truth and glory, and welcome any opportunity to continue to partner. We are right now designing a Percy Julian corridor leading up to the family home on Chicago Avenue to share vital information on Dr. Percy Julian and his family in partnership with daughter Faith, with the intention of supporting Black entrepreneurship for a vibrant small business district. We continue to work with Faith to prepare for honoring her wishes of preserving her family home for all to visit and share in further education of Dr. Percy Julian's life, as well as that of his wife, Anna, who also broke academic barriers when she earned a PhD in sociology from the University of Pennsylvania in 1937. One of the few women to earn such a distinction. Thank you again for including us in your celebration today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warren Adams, Mr. Sean Rose, for showing those two videos tonight. And to our other commissioners, are there any questions that you may have regarding the video? Any questions?
There's an unveiling of a plaque?
No, we unveiled a historical marker for Percy Jr. on April 12, 3 months ago.
Okay.
Yes, and his daughter could not attend, so I asked her if she would do a video for me. And Vicki Scaman is the mayor of Oak Park Village, and she was so thrilled at what we were doing here in Montgomery that she wanted to send us a message also. And during the ceremony, as was shown on WSFA Channel 12, I called Percy Julian's daughter during the unveiling, and Dr. Coleman and Ms. Mitchell from the Board of Education and the student government president at Percy Julian High School spoke with her during the unveiling. But she couldn't come because of some health concerns, but that was our way of trying to connect her to, first of all, calling her during the ceremony and then asking her to send this video for us. And we really appreciate her cooperation. Any other questions? Okay, I also want to say that Percy Julian's daughter was born in 1944. And during several of my conversation with her, she mentioned that she had not visited Montgomery since she was 2 years of age. And I said to Dr. Coleman and some of the other persons on the day we unveiled the historical marker that I'm going to try to get her to come to Montgomery at some point, certainly to see that school that's named for her father. But she has not been to Montgomery, Alabama since 1946, when she was 2 years of age. And I think a visit to Montgomery is long overdue. Okay, any other questions regarding the video? Thank you so much. Report from the Education Committee.
I'll be brief. It's just a continuation. It was a meeting with Sean Rose and I a continuation of the importance of reaching out to the community, the various communities, and people who might be potential stakeholders to invite them to our meetings. So the question is, how can we do that? And we keep advocating that we have to meet them where they are. So as we move forward for the rest of the year, reaching out to community centers or individuals who might be involved in the community in some capacity, but also just taking it upon ourselves to, when we're engaging in conversation about these historic districts, or I think a prime example is what we just saw. We can have a conversation just about a historic marker, and that would prompt a conversation that could lead to participation in how do you designate and define a historic district. What does the Historic Preservation Commission do? Why do they do what they do? And the impact of preservation. And then again, as we move forward, how can we automate and make what we do more efficient? But primarily right now is to raise awareness of this committee and preservation.
Okay. Any questions? Other commissioners, any questions regarding the education report? Okay, Sean, Warren, you all have any questions?
No, thanks for summarizing, Vince. Just to, add, I guess, my thoughts, similar to what Vince explained. And, he and I just were discussing ways to reach out to folks. And so I have it a little bit later on the agenda, but I can, put this message out right now as well. We just really wanted to say verbally to any folks that may be watching online that if you know of a historic building or someone who owns a historic building, or if you own a historic building, or something that you think might be historic, we wanted to give the opportunity to reach out. My phone number is on the agenda. I'll call it out here as well. It's 334-625-2041. You can also reach me by email at srose@montgomeryal.gov. We really want to start to bring more folks into the historic preservation program in this city. And so I've got a lot of things. I look at the Education and Designation Committee as, basically working together we have the board itself. So this is all kind of a unified thing that I'm, conceiving of. And so I'm working on a lot of things to move forward with additional designations. I think that's something that, has been lacking and that we will now start to move forward with. So again, just wanted to mention to any folks watching online, I've looked at our YouTube statistics. It's usually about 50 views per video that we have. And so I know that people do watch, although we may not have folks in the audience here in person, but that's, again, something that I want to work on. So if anyone, is interested in the work that we're doing, we encourage everyone to attend our meetings. We are meeting bi-monthly, the second Tuesday, bi-monthly at this point. So our next meeting will be in October. And again, if anyone knows of a building that you think is historic, that you think may meet the criteria for designation, I would love to hear from you. So just want to put that message out there. And I'll be working on something that we can put up on the screen as well with this information, along with the designation criteria. So I'll expect to have that for the next meeting, and that way people can see in writing what the designation criteria are. They're fairly broad, and as long as we can make a connection to either architecture, an important person, or an event in history, we can pretty much make an argument for most things. And so, again, I just wanted to put this message out there. So this is something that Vince and I were just discussing, and it's important, I think, as we move forward and we gain momentum, that we put an open broadcast out to anyone, again, that thinks, that you have a building, that you know a person that may own a building, or even if it's a, community-owned building, anything like that, that we want to give the opportunity for consideration. And I think I'll conclude there.
Thank you so much.
I have
Yeah.
one
I'm sorry.
quick question.
All right.
So if a person thinks that the building or the property they own is historic in nature, what information do they need to bring? Just bring what they think what information they have, and then you can take that and go forward with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't really have like a set, like necessarily a set template for information right now. So, I can work with people basically is I guess the message here. And, I want to be open to not just like written documents, but also oral history, that kind of thing. I have done some oral history work myself, so that's, I've been in discussion with Clay Street Baptist Church, who unfortunately recently had a fire, but they are interested in local designation, and so one of the things that I've talked with them about is an oral history. They know that they have some connections to the civil rights movement, so we just want to capture that information. So if it's in an oral history form, that would be like an audio file, and then I can transcribe it. I have certain tools. There's like online tools to be able to transcribe an audio file. So, so that's I'm kind of an archivist. Like I can do a lot of that documentation work, but then other sort of documents could be like deed documents, things showing the age of the building. That's going to be one of the biggest things, is to show the age of the building. Okay. A typical like rule of thumb is about 50 years, but it doesn't. Things can be designated even if they're not 50 years old. If they show like a high level of significance.
Okay.
So things like that, as far as documents to show the age of the building, and then things to show like historic events that may have happened there. I think those are going to be the two biggest things that we can designate for, are going to be events related to possibly the civil rights movement or other historic movements. We have a lot of industrial buildings in this city, so things related to industry and commerce could also be designated. And then the other piece will be architecture. So if there's something that is reminiscent of an architectural style, if it's a unique building that doesn't have a certain name style, but it's sort of some sort of unique building, we can make arguments for that as well. So I think architecture, and then like movements of history, things that are important events, and then you also could add in important historic people. So that's another aspect. So a lot of what we would need is going to be documentation to basically make that connection, something to show if there's photographs or if there's a written source indicating that a certain event happened there. Those kind of things are very helpful, and then I'll try and basically do my best to sort of fill in those gaps that we may have, and we can use oral history work in order to try and fill in those gaps if we don't necessarily have a written record.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just say, what I'm hearing is exactly what we need. Commissioner Vincent Hall, 1,000 kudos. We need that muscle, that push, that interest. And Sean, from your leadership role, seriously, this is a new day. Thank you so much. Designation Committee report.
Do you want me to go? I met with Sean, and Brennan had come in before. I think we kind of bypassed there. We have been reviewing a letter of inquiry that used to go out to people who inquired about having their properties or districts actually historic designated. And the letter actually was done about the mid-1980s, so we were re-editing it and sort of trying to make it a little more age-friendly, and as well as to further encourage people to follow through on the process. as well as we talked about working with neighborhood services, which is sort of an up-and-coming new department within the city. They have lots of informational fairs. They have speakers bureau for neighborhoods, and so that's a potential for folks to go and talk about the potential historic designation and what it will actually bring to their neighborhoods, because there's like several hundred neighborhoods that are registered with neighborhood services, and so this is a potential opportunity for them too to help improve property values, community interest. So that's the way through Mr. John Dow and his new city department as well. Well, I know Sean has feet on the street in South Hull with a lot of the citizens over in the district that he's working on doing a designation right now, and Capitol Parkway is very interested in updating their historic designation papers. They were designated in, I'm going to say 89 or 90, and so it's time to have all of that paperwork updated just for posterity too, new pictures taken, new architectural description, and there's a lot of research that's recently been going on that folks want to put on their individual properties to go down in history for better use of, for the next 40 years on that too. So those are just a few of the things that we talked about, and I think we have a meeting next week or so to sort of update that and come up with some other things.
Question, comment, anyone?
I would just add, Dr. Bailey, that, and thank you, Carol, for summarizing that. So, yeah, I think we want to develop this letter for basically outreach, so that way if we do, if we see buildings that we think are eligible, then we can reach out proactively. And I've got a bunch of files on that, on potential buildings that we think meet the criteria, and that we want to refresh the outreach that was done many years ago. So that's another avenue for potential new designations to come online. And then once we can get that outreach letter solidified, then I would like to work with the Designation Committee on potentially prioritizing or ranking the buildings that we have. So I have a working list that I'm going through, and so I think that's a good next step as well, to kind of prioritize things that that we think we want to tackle first, or in the immediate near term, and kind of go from there. And then yes, I still have it on my to-do list to go upstairs and talk with neighborhood services, so I'll do that in the near future as well, in order to see if we can get onto their newsletter and what other ways that we can collaborate with the neighborhoods that that they're linked with. And then Carol mentioned South Hull, so I did want to just provide a brief update on that. I have it, I think, a little later on the staff updates section, but I've gotten all the way through except for the last survey day for the site inventory forms. So that's a very exciting thing. It's taken me a long time to get to there, so I'm glad to be able to be at this stage. And once I complete the last day worth of site inventory forms, then I'll move forward into a designation report. So more on that will come before this board toward the later part of this year, possibly into early next year. So that's my plan for South Hull, and we hope to move forward on that. And as I said earlier, I do have 3 to 4 individual buildings that people have expressed interest in. So once I can complete the South Hull work, then I will go to those individual buildings as sort of the next potential designations that we have. So those are my thoughts, and yeah, we'll just keep moving from there.
Question, comments, anyone?
I have
Yes.
one comment, and I think as members, maybe we should take it up on ourselves. It's optional to invite someone to our next meeting, 1 or 2 people who you think may have an interest in what we're doing. And if they don't have an interest, I think we can share that information with them. Hopefully, even if they don't stay the entire meeting, they can come and just sort of get an idea of, who we are and put names with the faces and build, again, like Sean was saying, build on that momentum.
In fact, if you will get with that person and give them Sean's telephone number and ask that person to ask Sean to put them on the agenda, we love for them to say a few words. We want people to come to our meetings and let their feelings known. Let us know who they are and how they feel about issue A, issue B, issue C, whatever the case may be. That's what we're here for. And anyone you can think of, 625-2041, that's his number. And the reason I can give that out, he's a people person, and I really mean that. He's a people person. And he would love to talk to people who want to get the city moving. We have a lot of history here. And every day somebody forgets something, loses interest, or whatever the case may be. We want to capture every minute, every moment we can, and every memory that we possibly can. Thank you. Any other question? And by the way, Commissioner Carol King, excellent report. Very excellent. Thank you so much. And now, discussion with Jacob Van Megen of Landmark Foundation. And sir, welcome to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. If you'll speak directly into the microphone. We normally give our guests at least an hour to speak, but we'll ask you to take it down just a little bit for us.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. And I thank you also for this wonderful opportunity and this invitation. And thank you, Sean, for putting this together. I'm not sure if we're going to turn this into a broad discussion, but I hope that my input will lead to a broader discussion. Landmarks Foundation, and there is one slide before it. Before. The first slide. Yes. So that brings us to Cultural Crossroads 2026. And with this, I'm trying to walk in the footsteps of Miss Marianne Neely, who is already doing Cultural Crossroads since 2012. This has been a rolling ball since 2023 for me, and with the departure of Collier Neely, he asked me to prioritize Cultural Crossroads 2026 in the footsteps of our work to linking the past to the present by incorporating the Black experience in our preservation efforts. And that means a lot, incorporating the Black experience to link the past to the present. How does one do that? How many questions do I have? How much am I able to explain to you in this short time about those efforts? Next slide, please. Just for your information, a little bit about my educational background. I started my study as a Dutch master florist on the Gerrit Rietveld Art Academy in 1989. Since then, I've studied I was a qualified agricultural engineer, a special education teacher. I studied journalism, psychology, and cultural humility at Vanderbilt University, where I graduated in 2021. My professional background, briefly, news producer for LNP-IPA in the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Central and South America. Editor-in-chief for Sanoma WSLP, a Finnish corporation, publishing corporation, freelance journalist for Redactiewerk Media Ideas, program specialist for the Alabama AETC, and living block manager and horticulturist at OAT, at Old Alabama Town, till now. Landmarks Foundation mission is short to preserve, interpret, and present Alabama's architecture, history, and culture. To relate to this mission, I try to make a parallel with a world view. So there are many historical cultural crossroads. And this all leads up to the explanation of Ms. Mary Ann Neely to come to a more Alabama-focused point of view. So historical crossroads in general means a historical network of trade routes primarily active from the 2nd century BCE to the 15th century CE, connecting the East and the West. It facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, religions, and cultures between Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. So, in short, cultural crossroads are points where people, different cultures meet each other. Next slide, please. In the United States, the cultural crossroads, primarily well-known cultural crossroads, are the Trans-Pacific Maritime Route connecting Asia to the US West Coast, and the Transatlantic Route linking North America to Europe. Specifically, this line was very important for its role during the transatlantic slave trade. That makes Montgomery also an incredible, important place as a cultural crossroad on itself. Going back to Alabama, we can name the crossroad the Federal Road connecting the East Coast and primarily Georgia with the Mississippi Territory and the Port of New Orleans through the territory of the Creek Nations. It became critical for United States westward expansion. At Old Alabama Town, we currently have the Lucas Tavern, a Federal Road landmark that is preserved at Old Alabama Town at 310 North Hull Street, and that happened to be my office. This image shows you how historically cultural crossroads connected different cultures for the purpose of trade negotiations, land use, and safe passage. While these negotiations led to progress and prosperity, it often led to conflict because of the complex nature of truly understanding each other. In the cultural crossroads for landmarks, in the opinion of Mary Ann Neely, meant, in short, and I quote, in the context of cultural preservation, landmarks cultural crossroads signifies a place where different cultural traditions, ideas, and practices unite and positively influence one another. In the past, this has led to new artistic experience, hybrid identities, and a dynamic give and take. End of quote. Landmarks Cultural Crossroads is anticipating to present a 3-day conference in the spring of April 2026. Next slide, please. And the first day is titled The American Cultivated Tapestry, How Gardening Embodies the U.S. Cultural Diversity. So somehow in gardening and landscaping and the cultivated tapestry of land use, there is some kind of an organic understanding that yes, we have different opinions about gardening and the makeable landscape, but we acknowledge those facts while acknowledging our own limitations of our cultural background. Next slide, please. So, as a statement, introduction of day one, horticulture in the United States is a vibrant reflection of our nation's rich cultural mosaic, showcasing how diverse communities have shaped and been shaped by the land. American horticulture is a living narrative of cultural identity, resilience, and adaptations. That brought me to the topics of day one. Indigenous homesteading, a holistic understanding of ecosystems and sustainable farming practices. 18th and 19th centuries, where pioneers and homesteading were prevalent. The late 19th and 20th centuries, the rise of ornamental gardening and suburbanization. The mid-20th century, or the post-war boom and turf lawn culture. And the late 20th century to present integration of the edible landscape movement and community gardening, as we see all over Montgomery in recent days. Next slide, please. Now, based on the Bloom's taxonomy and wishful outcomes of learning, a day of learning, I defined some of the wishful outcomes of that day. Defined the historical needs of homesteading, discussed how suburbanization, beautification, and how commercial nurseries intersect with economic development and healthy living, explain the rise of expensive, well-manicured lawns as a status symbol in suburban America, and identify the influence of environmental awareness, organic gardening, locally grown produce, and native edible landscaping. That brings me to day two, which is a little bit more complex because as a person who didn't grow up in the United States, I'm not aware of this complex relationship. But reading through and doing research about all those topics, that brought me to the title Mid-Century Modernism and the Civil Rights Movement, a complex relationship. What I didn't find was how complex is that relationship and why is it complex? That brought me to an introduction of day two, and that tells me that mid-century modern architecture and the civil rights movements, while seemingly distinct, they intersected in complex ways, reflecting both the ideals and the systematic inequalities of the Jim Crow era. So, for the topics of day one, I've put some handouts on your desk, and those are the topic input that dear Vincent Hall and Maurice Robinson have brought to the table to discover. I think it would be great if we can have on a later moment a broader discussion about this input and how to fit those ideas into the narrative of Bloom's taxonomy to come to a set of desirable outcomes for day two of our Cultural Crossroads Conference. Next slide, please. So learning outcomes, thank you. Next slide. This would be my wish for discussion input. So urbanization is widely accepted as humanity's greatest invention, especially in the United States. Most of our cities were developed during an era of profound social, economic, and technological challenges. With Cultural Crossroads, Landmarks Foundation and Visions, discovering a broad array of urban issues, including policies, politics, architecture, history, and culture. That is exactly also the narrative of and the mission of the Landmarks Foundation. Cultural diversity. In the matter of cultural diversity, Cultural Crossroads will positively contribute to the rich mosaic of diversity, where tolerance and understanding among those various communities, where there is tolerance and understanding among those communities. It embraces cultural perspectives to enhance the social fabric of our society as large. Ultimately, our efforts to integrate cultures can lead to a more harmonious coexistence. Communities that navigate cultural successfully experience social cohesion, mutual respect, and understanding. So, from a cultural humility perspective, that means that cultural humility approaches cultural interactions with a mindset of curiosity and respect. It acknowledges the limitations of our personal cultural understanding with a culturally humble mindset. We commit to lifelong learning while dismantling existing inequalities. Now, what is the goal of this? Next slide, please. The goal of this, from a landmarks perspective, is to encourage the dynamic of and interconnected nature of cultural knowledge exchange, where different cultures meet, interact, and shape each other without judgment through architectural, historical, and cultural preservation. We knowingly, willingly, and intentionally create a richer and also a more complex cultural landscape. Now, that last sentence is, why doesn't it make easier? Because it expects from us that we are challenging ourselves to acknowledge that my cultural limitations are just as valuable as yours. And that makes the society on itself more complex, but also far more interesting. Next slide, please. In this discussion that I invite you all to participate in, the key factors are federal housing policies and redlining, restrictive confidence, suburban development and white flight, urban renewal and displacement, exclusionary zoning, segregation and housing disparities, public housing and black communities, and the role of gentrification. Next slide, please. So to illustrate the reality of mid-century modern architecture, I give you a picture of 3452 Bankhead Avenue in Montgomery, Alabama. This house was built in 1953 for the Doctors' Wool and their 5 children, and it was designed by architect Don L. Horton. To give you an example of the reality of a completely different architectural style for less fortunate communities. Next slide, please. I'll give you the same design principles for neighborhoods. I'll give you the same design principles for neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods. The mid-century Cleveland Court Apartments built in 1943. I was told that apartment 634 was the former home of Miss Rosa Parks in Montgomery, Alabama. It just gives you an idea about the difference in, not only the difference in perception, but the difference in reality, and how to go forward for that. So my call in this evening, or in this meeting and in this presentation, is who feels challenged to take part as an advisor in a broader discussion about mid-century modern architecture and the complex relationship with the civil rights movement. Thoughts, remarks, questions, please.
Questions, remarks, comments, whatever. Anyone?
Yeah, I will. I'll comment. Thanks, Jacob. That was. I appreciate your approach because it is very thought-provoking. I know when Dr. Maurice Robinson and I looked at this, it was even the word complex is a play on words. You know, you have an apartment complex, but it's also a complicated situation. So I do think that it is ripe for conversation that that people can have, but I think we're fortunate enough to have, I think, very knowledgeable people on this commission that can engage in conversation. As I look at Dr. Bailey and Dr. Robertson, that can sort of add, certainly add some meat to this. Because when Dr. Maurice Robinson and I were talking, you know, we were just thinking in terms of, we look at these buildings in the city, who's the architect? You know, there's so much history in the building, but the stories in the building, like who built the building? And we know about the interstate system and what it did to the west side, how it eradicated, decimated that community. So much was lost. And I think when you talk to people in my community, because I live on the west side, they may know the history of the building, but you know, many churches have cornerstones that tell you when the church was erected and all of that. I don't know if buildings have that. I drove by the Elks Club today and I just sort of glanced up there, and now I think next time I drive by I want to stop to see if there's a cornerstone that would tell you more information about that building, because you know the Elks Club is historic within itself, and I'll just use that as an example. So thank you, Dr. Bailey. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other comment? Please. Question.
Well, I was going to comment that some of this thought behind this began when we got real intrigued and were studying mid-century modern Montgomery period for the last couple of years in preparation for a book. But it's hard to do diligence to everything, because even in the mid-19th century, there were a lot of black architects, designers, builders, and because of a lot of Jim Crow that was still in place, the knowledge of their work is not as known as, you know, the white architects, because Montgomery was full of architects because of Auburn, but there were also people coming out of Tuskegee as well. There was a lot of building going on in all communities after World War II as the troops came home, who were both black and white, and using VA loans to create housing. And it's sort of the disparity as to how that took place is sort of an interesting concept that kind of birthed this as well. Plus, when you get into all the other political things like the interstate intrusions and school zoning and all of that comes to, in our mid-century modern goes anywhere from the end of World War II to 1971, I think, is in one of those talk sessions for a grant that Christie was interviewing. They were doing oral histories. They were putting, I think it was Georgette Norman, they were putting 1971 as the end of one of the movements with the white flight, when the lines got drawn, you know, from that, those. For a lot of other places, it was a smaller period of time, but for Montgomery, it took us decades.
So Carol, may I quickly respond to your, because at Landmarks we were working on those, rewriting our interpretive plan and rewriting the story that we tell at the historical structures that we had in Old Alabama Town. That led to a broader discussion about a mid-century modern book, and I was asked if that was an interesting idea for a book about mid-century Montgomery. So looking into that question, I discovered that there's far more to it than just the bright side of post-war return, and suddenly have this design communication of design, where you build structures that are primarily available for the happy few. And from that, I said we cannot write a book about mid-century Montgomery without explaining what that complexity of that relationship is with the civil rights movement. So yes, a book is very feasible about that topic, but how do we actually incorporate the black voice in that without dismissing it?
Jacob, I also wanted to comment too that everybody got, they got the presentation, but they also got the summer edition of Landmarks Momentum, which is our newsletter, which has our illustrious commissioner, Vincent Hall, has a lovely article in there too about Peacock Tract and that community around it.
So we started documenting mid-century Montgomery architecture as it is presented now, and that begins on page number 8 and has 4 pages. And in this article, we don't even mention the complexity of that architecture and against the backdrop of the civil rights movement and the Jane Crow era. So somehow I feel that is missing in here, and somehow I feel that needs to be picked up.
Any other comments, questions, observations? Anything you're uneasy about? Let me just say, sir, how much we all appreciate your presence here this afternoon. And I just want to make a couple of comments. Commissioner Hall, if you know someone who is connected to that Elks Club, we might be able to get some funding for a little pamphlet that the people at the Elks Club could make available to their patrons that traces the history of that Elks Club all the way back to Union Street, if you know what I'm saying. Sure. If we could incorporate that into our Education Commission or our Designation Committee efforts, I think we will find ourselves doing a lot of good. And if we can get our hands on someone connected to the MIA, Montgomery Improvement Association, and make certain we have a copy of some of their records, if you know what I'm saying, that we could make certain that we are making them available to the public, if you get my drift. Right. But that Elks Club has a rich history in terms of how prominent it has been in Montgomery's history. Persons associated with the Elks Club make up basically a who's who of Black Montgomery. You know the story. Yeah. And I wouldn't want anything to happen to the Elks Club, if you get my drift. Right. Okay. Sir, we'd like to invite you to come back at your own caprice just to let us know what's going on. You give us an update or whatever the case might be.
Absolutely.
But please feel free to come back. That's our bottom line point here this afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey.
Thank you. Appendix C, Historic District, Old Cloverdale, Draft Revised ARB Design Guidelines. Sean, you want to take a lead on that?
Sure. Just this is continuing what we've had on about the last year or so of our agendas. At the end of the design guidelines, there will be an appendix section with a little brief description of each historic district. So this is for Old Cloverdale. I've also recently done the neighborhood spotlight on Old Cloverdale, so a lot of this is kind of shared with that as well. So we're really just putting this on the agenda so that if any board members see any issues or anything that I've left out, feel free to comment, and we'll be happy to include that.
Okay. Anyone has a question or comment? Anyone? Old Cloverdale. Is there anything in the report that intrigued you? Okay. Sean, I'd just like to make one or two comments. Number one is that I just want to make certain that our other commissions know there were 3 names mentioned in that report for whom streets are named here in Montgomery. I didn't want that to pass us by, that streets are named for at least 3 of those persons whose names come out in that report. Okay. Anything else on Old Cloverdale? Okay. Message to the public for feedback and engagement. What would folks like to know about historic preservation?
Yeah, so just continuing from earlier, along with, outreach for possible designations, if anyone has questions or, thoughts about something that you would like explained or something that's not clear about what historic preservation is, those are conversations that I would be happy to have as well. And that will also help us with our education efforts as we move forward. Again, we are working on a basically like a sort of workshop. And I'm thinking that that's likely going to go into the springtime of next year as we deal with other, things with designations as well. So really just kind of another outreach to anyone if you have feedback or any questions that you have, just any kind of things like that. I'm just interested to open the dialogue. So again, feel free to reach out. I'm definitely happy to talk to folks and see if I'm able to clear up any misconceptions or things that might be unclear about what it is that historic preservation is or what we do, what can be done, with historic preservation. So again, just wanted to put that out there. Anyone can contact me at 334-625-2041.
Okay, thank you very much. Staff updates?
Just like to let everyone know that a couple of weeks ago I attended the unveiling of the Southern Courier marker on the corner of Commerce and Bibb. It was very well attended, and they actually had some of the original staff members from the Southern Courier there. So it was a very informative unveiling, and if you get the chance, please stop by and have a look at the marker.
Anything else?
Yeah, and I just thank you, Warren, for attending. I was out of town for that event, but I'm glad that it was well attended, and I think that's a fantastic historic marker in a very prominent location. So that was a fun one for me to work on and help facilitate the installation. I just had a couple of updates. I want to give the opportunity for Vince if you want to talk a little bit more about Peacock Tract. We had a meeting regarding the National Register nomination for that neighborhood, and it sounds like, unfortunately, we're being told by the National Park Service that the boundary needed to be reduced, losing some of the vacant lots out of that. So that's not ideal, but Katie Randall and Sherry have been working on getting that, sort of trying to mitigate the loss from that. So Vince, if you want to say a little more on it.
Yeah, and I think before we go forward, the location of the Southern Courier marker, well, you mentioned that. Where's it located?
I think Warren said something. It's Bibb and Commerce,
okay.
Or it might have been Dr. Bailey.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and I think the second thing is, Sean, you were right. Katie and Sherry, they have been going back and forth with the National Park Service to make sure that, they did everything they could to include as much as they could. But I think there are so many vacant areas in that space that could not be included. So they had to redraw the district. The upside is they are going to submit that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, if it's accepted, we still have an opportunity to perhaps later on go back and revisit that. Is that?
Yeah, that was something that I mentioned was that, there is such a thing as revisiting a National Register nomination. And so, that is something that, I would think, down the line, perhaps, we could do that as far as looking at how things may have changed over time. That would be an option.
And I think one takeaway was, and maybe that's something we are encountering here, the rules and regulations are outdated because of the, it's a historic district that has been excluded from so many things. So they're having to, I guess, create as they go and having to, just continue to go back and forth until it meets the criteria as close as possible. So at least now we have something to submit, and we'll just see what happens.
Okay.
And I would also comment just as well, just to add to what Vince said again, with the Peacock Tract nomination to the National Register, Sherry has explained a couple different times that I've heard her say this, that it really is groundbreaking because we are listing the highway interchange as a contributing resource. And it's our understanding that this has really not been done across, the South, maybe the country as a whole. I know there similar pattern happened in Atlanta, Georgia, New Orleans, Louisiana are just two that come to my mind that I've read something about where, a highway interchange came in through an African American neighborhood. So we do think that it will be a positive thing to get this listed. And just wanted to update you all on that. Sherry and Katie called a meeting, with the advisory committee, just to advise on, that this was the feedback that we were getting and kind of what they felt needed to happen in order to get the neighborhood listed.
How many households or how many, are you contributing, or do you just off the top of your head?
I'm not sure.
You know offhand?
Yeah, I'd have to look. I do have the nomination at my office.
Just kind of ballpark.
But yeah, I don't remember. I don't recall the numbers.
Well, I was just wondering, could it be online to, go through us for local designation once the National Register goes through?
Potentially, but I think that I think it would be challenging for Peacock Tract, but we've had, maybe if Warren has more to say on the idea on the conservation heritage sort of idea, I think that is something that makes sense. But again, and Katie actually, I asked this question on the meeting, and Katie indicated that Alabama really as a state doesn't have a conservation heritage clause. There's really no law or legislation about that. Mm-hmm. So we would have to kind of, invent the wheel on that one. But I think that it is something that, is a valuable conversation as far as.
And I think that's where you can go over the fact that the National Register criteria is slightly outdated, because the National Register criteria is so focused on architecture and integrity that the idea was to create possibly a cultural heritage district that would focus not only on the architecture and the buildings and what's standing, but the cultural significance of the neighbourhood. And that was all moving ahead nicely until it was determined that cultural heritage is no longer a good term to use, and you're extremely unlikely to get any grants for it at the moment. So the plan is to keep moving ahead, but basically call it something else, because cultural heritage was one of the terms that was flagged recently by the federal government regarding grants, to the point that we had applied for a grant for it last year, and it was very highly ranked, and they said apply for it again this year. But we ended up not submitting it simply because the federal government is really not awarding funding for that sort of thing at the moment. So what we are considering doing is, in line with changes to the zoning code, in line with proposed new developments, mixed use, and looking at a lot of the existing buildings in the neighbourhood, trying to create something based around the cultural heritage, but not necessarily calling it that. So that's sort of where we are at the moment. But that sort of thing does get beyond the National Register criteria, which focuses very strongly on architecture, buildings, integrity. When you start adding in that cultural element, it really expands what you can do, to the point that you could potentially even designate vacant lots, because the reason they're vacant is because of the construction of the highways, and because of the decline of the neighbourhood, leading to people leaving, leading to buildings falling into disrepair, leading to vacant lots. So you could sort of justify including these lots potentially in a cultural heritage district, whereas you can't really do that in a National Register district.
And I'll just add to that as well, the National Register, nomination process is really intended as a planning tool. And so this is, I said this in the meeting that we had as well regarding this change to the boundary, that I think it will be a tremendous thing for the area, for the neighborhood, for the city as a whole, to get Peacock Tract nominated. And we can use that as momentum, again, to build toward, looking at something at the local level. And that's another track for the designations, that we've talked about and have been talking about, is looking at everything that's on the National Register and taking a look at that for the local level. And so, I think that there's a way that we can approach it. But as Warren mentioned, the sort of, grant space has been in upheaval right now. So we're kind of just in a bit of a holding pattern. But this National Register nomination is still moving forward. And I think that we have a strong likelihood of it being listed in the near-term future.
Thank you. Anything else from anybody? Anybody has anything going on you'd like to bring to our attention? Any event, whatever, that you'd like to bring to our attention?
I would just mention that this is sort of preservation related, but as you know, we're updating the city zoning code at the moment, so Module 1 is online for review, and we're hoping that Module 2 and the subdivision regulations will be online soon. But we do have funding for basically now and into next year to update the smart code, which really focuses on the downtown area, and Montgomery 2040, which is the city's comprehensive plan looking into the future. So possibly of most interest to you would be the comprehensive plan, because if we want to make sure that historic preservation is high up in the priorities of the city, then through the comprehensive plan is one way that we can potentially do this. So I'm just giving you a heads up that all of this is coming up. All of it could potentially have an effect on the sort of development you see round about you. So if you're interested, please do look at these documents and get any comments to us. But this will be ongoing. The zoning code will not be finalised until potentially March 2026, and the comprehensive plan and smart code will be at least a year away, I would think, but just a heads up that these things are happening.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? Let me just say how much we appreciate everybody coming out this afternoon, our other commissioners, our staff, our video people, Mike Mann and his crew, our security people. With there being no further business, the meeting is hereby adjourned.